Huawei.
Huawei, the world's leading manufacturer of 5G network gear.
I worked at Huawei for 3 years for their consumer business group in the Korea office. I was the only Korean person in a 4-member team when I first joined. It became almost a 25-member team at the end of my days there. As I was the only Korean member in the team at the beginning, I basically had to deal with almost everything when I first joined. It was a great time because I launched the first Huawei smartphone to the Korean market. It was the first Chinese brand smartphone to launch in the Korean market as well. I diversified the product portfolio when I was there. I expanded the sales channel and also expanded to all major telcos in the Korean market, which is a huge accomplishment during my 3 years there. Even though I work at Amazon now, I still consider my days at Huawei the toughest time I had in my career, as well as the most rewarding time, because I was able to grow so much professionally as well as personally, and was able to learn so much about a company that's so controversial these days. Yeah, so I worked at the company. I worked at Huawei, which is super controversial these days. People always ask me how it was like working there. I thought it would be interesting to cover this in one of my videos because how the media, especially here in the US, kind of portrays Huawei as more like a Chinese espionage institution where you spy on all the Americans or everyone in the world. So I kind of wanted to share the experience I had, which I think is super unique for people in tech as well as just people in general. So this is one of those videos where I share my experience at Huawei. So today I want to share my experience working at Huawei and kind of give you a glimpse of what the company is actually like when you're inside of it. So let's jump right into the things. So number one, it's a very top-down culture. So I think this is not only for Huawei, but most of the Asian companies that I work for. In Korea, China, or Japan, hierarchy is everything. You get orders and you follow them. Sometimes we call it the army culture in Korea because it's so hierarchical and it's always top down. I always had conversations with my boss as well as people from headquarters, but it's mostly top down. Someone tells you what to do and you just find ways to do it. It's not like people in just working level kind of bringing up ideas to the top. It's more like getting orders and making things happen in the schedule that was initially shared with the executive leaderships. Second is wolf culture. So Huawei, I almost said we, but like they actually call themselves as wolves, and it's like wolf culture because wolves usually have a leader, and if leader kind of points to a target, every single wolves in that group kind of goes there to attack the target. And that's how exactly Huawei looks like. It kind of ties into the first point where I said it's super top-down culture, because once the leadership kind of assigns or gives an order to do something, let's say, hey, we're gonna launch a new smartphone in the Korean market, and everyone kind of finds out the ways to do that. It's very interesting because the slogan Huawei has is impossible is nothing. And it's just really interesting to see that because it's like once they were told to do something, they usually make it happen. And I think that's where these company slogan, impossible is nothing, is coming from. Wolf culture, I think, is the best way to explain how it is working there at Huawei. Number three is that it's very Chinese dominated. So what I mean by that is that first, all the people in positions, like hiring positions, are Chinese people. I wouldn't say all of them, but most of them. Especially when it comes to finance and those kind of important positions, it's all Chinese people. Expats from China to take care of the finance part, because I think it's one of the things about the company that they want something from their HQ to kind of take care of those. And another part is that although in the Korea office we had around 300 people, I think a lot of the folks there were Chinese. I would probably say 30%. You probably might say that it's not a lot, but all the other people we hired in the Korea office, it was usually people who could speak Chinese as well. At the time, at the beginning of my time at Huawei, I was not able to say anything in Chinese, so I was kind of isolated because a lot of times teammates were speaking in Chinese, even if I'm in the same meeting room. In a meeting, they would just talk everything in Chinese and then say, okay, let's make it happen. Young, you heard what we said. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand a word what you said. And then they kind of go over it again just for me to understand. Not only the people, but also the culture is very Chinese dominated. And I don't blame that. It's a cultural thing. And I think they feel much more comfortable doing that, but it's something that you should consider if you are, fantasizing of working there. Or number 4, it's a very hardworking company. I heard stories of bunk bed and people actually just sleeping in the office, especially the engineers. I could really feel that they work really hard and they really work long hours to make things happen. Obviously, that's very common in Korea as well, so I did not really have problem with that. Most of the times I enjoyed working there, learned so much, but it is something that you should understand that it's a very hardworking culture that you do not really get time to rest. It's more like work, and then also the other part is that WeChat is the communication tool. They don't really use email. I've seen a lot of times that people would never reply back to you on emails, but they would reply back to you immediately on WeChat, which I thought was super strange, and I thought was unprofessional, but it's just how it is. And I used to get WeChat messages from my manager or from headquarters way over work hours. Like, for example, 10 p.m., like even midnight, I would get WeChat messages saying that, hey, Brian, I used to go by Brian when I was there, but, like, Brian, can you check this with, someone? Can you check that with someone? Do this or do that. But like I was kind of used to that culture because the first Korean company I worked for was very similar to that as well. But yeah, just saying that it's a hardworking company and very hardworking, work long hours. I'm not really sure if it's efficient, but work really long hours. Or number 5 is I personally felt that if the company was super political when it comes to relationship. I've seen multiple times where people get promoted regardless of their performance, more based on the relationship with other people, like higher ranked leadership person, kind of. So there used to be a saying where it was just so strange how my manager was like, hey Brian, go to that person and have drink with them in like a company wide after work drink session or happy hour, right? Like he was basically saying you should know him, you should you should have good relationship with that person so that you can succeed. And I was like, well, maybe I was naive, but like I was more like, I'll get the shit done, and that's how I would be evaluated. That's how I thought, but I think I was just a little naive maybe. But yeah, it was super political, and it mattered who you know more than what you do or how you do it. So that's something that I got really tired of, and also the part that it's very Chinese dominated, and people who were not Chinese or who did not speak Chinese fluently didn't really get a chance to go up or work in the headquarters to do more bigger job. Was not an option for people like me working in the Korean office. So that was one of the things that I really, well, I wouldn't say did not like, but like that was a thing that I thought was ceiling that I had. So that was one of the reasons that I got really kind of disappointed at the end of the day. Last but not least, they care really much about performance. So it's kind of ironic because I said it's very political, and then now I say performance. But a performance based on how much money you can make in terms of business is the performance they care about. I mean, obviously, same with all the other companies, but it was so much with Huawei. So they pay you lower base salary and kind of give you high bonus based on your performance. I've seen a lot of people leave because they are not happy with their compensation, but at the same time, I've seen people who get more than what they were promised at the beginning. So I guess I was one of those people in the latter part who got compensated higher than what I was originally expecting because of the high bonus that I got. It was strange. It was not at the end of the year, but it was more like in June. But anyway, so was disappointed with the base salary, but I liked it because I thought it was a great opportunity, and I thought we were changing the industry. So that's why I stick to it. But I was kind of surprised when I saw my paycheck on June because it had huge bonus on it, which I can't really tell how much it was, but it was a large ratio compared to my base salary. That was the last thing that I wanted to share, that the company compensates you well if you do well, and it gives you lower salary than most of the other companies. That's what I just wanted to tell. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video kind of helped you understand like how the culture life is like in Huawei. Obviously, I have not worked for their headquarters, or I have not worked for the US office. I can't really tell you how it is in those regions. This was purely based on my experience working at Huawei for 3 years and kind of making it grow from 0 to something in that short time period. Hope you liked it. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Thank you, and stay tuned.